I'm Courtney Brown, Vice President of Strategic Impact and Planning for Lumina Foundation, an independent private foundation committed to making opportunities for learning beyond high school available to all. Thanks for joining us for this year's unveiling of the latest data and insights from our updated Stronger Nation tool. The online tool provides valuable insights into our progress toward the national goal of achieving a 60% post-high school attainment rate by 2025. I'm thrilled to share exciting news that underscores the tremendous growth the nation has made in shaping a brighter future. Once again this year, we celebrate a significant increase in attainment in the United States, marking a notable achievement in our journey toward a more educated and skilled population. As we present the latest news, we want to hear from you. So please enter your questions in the chat box, and I, along with our upcoming special guests, will get to as many as we can during our time together. There's an enormous amount of data in Stronger Nation, but today, I'm eager to share 3 key takeaways that highlight the remarkable progress we've made and the promising direction in which we're heading. So let's delve in to the latest data. The United States has made remarkable strides in achieving the national goal of increasing quality attainment beyond high school to 60% by 2025. In 2009, our nation's attainment rate was 38.1%. Fast forward to the most recent data for 2022, and we proudly sit at 54.3%. This represents a staggering 16 percentage point increase in just 14 years, showcasing our collective commitment and dedication to education and the brighter future it promises. Kentucky and Rhode Island increased by an impressive 3.4 percentage points in overall attainment compared to last year. And DC, Colorado, North Carolina, Alabama, and Florida each grew over 2 percentage points. While some of the increase over the 14 years can be attributed to finding a way to measure and then add high-quality short-term credentials, a substantial portion is also thanks to an 8.5 percentage point rise in the attainment of bachelor and associate degrees. In the last few years, we've seen remarkable increases each year in degree attainment. In fact, over the last year, it's risen almost a full percentage point, from 45.7% in 2021 to 46.5% in the most recent 2022 data. Impressively, this past year, 42 states, along with DC and Puerto Rico, have witnessed an uptick in degree attainment, with 19 states and DC seeing an increase over 1 percentage point. And we're also seeing great increases for Black and Hispanic Americans in degree attainment. The Racial Equity tab on Stronger Nation provides a clearer picture of this progress when breaking down the data by race and ethnicity. The future looks very promising too. In 2008, young adults aged 25 to 34 had an attainment rate of less than 38%, which was slightly lower than the full working age population of 25 to 64. Today, that trend has reversed substantially. The 25 to 34 age group sits at a 56.3% attainment rate, 2 percentage points over the full working age population. The Hispanic population has played a significant role in this reversal, with degree attainment soaring from 19.4% in 2009 to 33.5% in 2022. These insights just scratch the surface of the wealth of information in the latest release of Stronger Nation. I encourage each of you to explore it further. Simply type in luminafoundation.org/StrongerNation. Follow the link on this page. You'll find all the latest data available. But these are more than numbers. They're a testament to the collective efforts and dedication of all of us toward advancing education and opportunity for millions of Americans. While we celebrate the tremendous progress made over the last 14 years, it's essential to recognize our work is far from complete. Our shared goal is to ensure that at least 60% of our population possess the skills and knowledge acquired through post-high school learning. This is for prosperous careers and lives. And while we've made great progress, stubborn equity gaps exist that we must address and close. I believe if we work together that it's possible. Look what we already accomplished since we all started working on this in 2008. Now, without further ado, the best part. It's time for your questions. So while I've been talking, my amazing colleague, Chris Mullen, has been taking your questions, answering some, and queuing others up for us to answer together. And for that portion, I'll be joined by two esteemed guests. But before we get to them, I'd like to introduce my other fabulous colleague, Domi Raymond, who's going to help us moderate the discussion. Domi, over to you.
Thanks so much, Courtney. Happy to be here. I can't believe it. The gang's all together. We've been doing this actually for several years and just really thrilled to be here with all of you. We know that there are a lot of you online and are very interested in this webinar. Just a shout out. This is Chris Mullen, y'all, if you haven't seen him. I'll put his photo up for you all to see. I noticed that didn't work out, but I'll go ahead and share that. But Chris is an integral part of this team, and we really want to just acknowledge his role in this. But man, are we excited. We're very excited to have as our special guests two higher education advocates. Any of us who have been in this policy field for as long as I have and others, really know Ted Mitchell and Joe Garcia. Ted Mitchell is the president of the American Council on Higher Education, and Joe Garcia, he is the chancellor of the Colorado Community College System. But what really is wonderful about them is that they know the work from their time, in Ted's case, in California, serving as the undersecretary under the Obama administration, and of course, Chancellor Garcia having served as the 48th Lieutenant Governor of Colorado, and really just had an integral role of being a higher ed advocate. So just welcome. That's why they're special, y'all. I just want to name that. So with that, happy to hand it back over to Courtney before we get to our questions.
Thanks, Domi. So let me just start out first, and I appreciate both of you joining us for this today. And you know, you've seen some of the data beforehand. You heard the intro, and I just like your quick take on what do you think about these data so far. Joe, why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Courtney. First, I'm excited to see continued attainment growth, both nationally and here in Colorado, where we jumped to almost 56%. That's up almost 2% just from last year. And honestly, I don't think we would have seen this kind of growth but for Lumina's leadership, going back to 2009 when it set that national attainment goal and encouraged states to do the same. And so when I was the SHIO here in Colorado, the head of the Department of Higher Education, we built a strategic plan around that, and we set our goal of 66% based on the fact that we were already higher than average. But we also had a challenge in that we have huge attainment gaps. So we had some of the highest overall attainment, but some of the highest attainment gaps between our white and non-white populations is a problem that you pointed out in the video we all just saw. So I'm still pleased. We're seeing growth among students of color, but we need to see more. We need to close those gaps, or we simply can never get to that goal. Even if we educate every white high schooler, get them into college, it's not going to do it because of our changing demographics. So we're focused on that. We're pleased that we've seen 8% growth in attainment for Black Coloradans, 12% growth in attainment for Latino Coloradans, still have persistent gaps for men of color we have to address. And I have concerns that we haven't yet seen. This data doesn't show us the full impact of the pandemic because of the lag. You know, we're looking at 25-year-olds, and we know that we saw less engagement for students in high school. We saw a decline in the college going rate, a decline in college readiness. And the biggest declines were among the populations where we had focused our efforts, which are students of color, first generation students, rural students, and low income students. So we've got a lot more work to do, but I am heartened by the progress.
Thanks, Joe. Ted, what do you think from the national perspective?
You know, first of all, join Joe and hats off to the Lumina Foundation. I do believe that the national attainment goal has galvanized energy certainly Joe's a perfect example of this at the state level, but also at the national level. So thanks. And it's rare. I know I'm a data geek, but it's rare that the release of data causes actual joy. But here I am, and the release of these data actually both surprised me and gave me great joy. And I'll tell you why. We hear so often that higher education is in decline. We hear so often that students don't need to go to college. Joe, you mentioned the decline in college going and college ready rates during the pandemic. You could kind of expect the data to show some of that, and it didn't. It showed just the opposite. It showed that college matters. The economics behind the report that you're doing show that college continues to matter to students, and it matters a lot to minoritized populations. And so all of that's really heartening. The big surprise for me, and I think we'll get to it later, is the decline in credentials and certificates. Because I think that that's what we've been told is the degree is outmoded, and here come the certificates. And I think this is going to help us take a hard look at that.
Thanks, Ted. That's super helpful. As a fellow data geek, I'm always happy when somebody says that data bring them joy, because they bring me joy every day. Hey, Domi, what are you seeing in some of the questions? Let's get to those.
So Chris, here's Chris's photo for those of you who want to know. Chris, we received a question from Rebecca, and Rebecca wants to know, higher education is getting beaten up right now. What do these data mean?
Great question. Hey,
let's start with Joe. Do you want?
Actually,
go
let's start with
Courtney.
Ted, just given what you just said about the degree matters. I'd like you could follow up on that based on this question.
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, I think that the national dialogue often does not reflect either the nation or the dialogue. And so I think that these data suggest that people across America believe in higher education and believe in the quality and the importance of a degree, whether it's an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. I think that's good. But I want to say at the same time, that doesn't mean that we're out of the woods. Higher education, the declining confidence in higher education has a lot to do with rhetoric, but it also has to do with some things that we aren't doing very well. And so we need to, at every opportunity, take a look at graduation rates, persistence between freshman and sophomore year, differences in graduation rates by ethnicity, job satisfaction and employment after college. These are all matters, student debt. These are all matters that we need to continue to attend to, but I'm sure happy to see the needle go up a little bit here.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, you probably see some of this beating up firsthand in Colorado. So what do you think about these numbers based on that?
Well, it certainly is disappointing to see that higher ed is getting beaten up, often by political leaders who have benefited from high quality higher education themselves and who continue to send their own kids to elite institutions. I think we've got to get Americans to focus on the fact that there are more than 10 or 12 institutions that matter in this country. But if you read the New York Times, we think it's all about the Ivy League and a few others. When we look at state institutions and community colleges, we know they add value. They make people's lives better. And that's where we need to focus. We need to show the value of college because the public doesn't see higher ed as having intrinsic value the way it did for previous generations. They're worried about cost, about debt levels, and importantly about relevancy. And so they want ROI. Can we demonstrate that going to college is worth the investment? And I think that's one of the things our new state strategic plan calls out specifically. It's going to measure our success in Colorado based on ROI. Are students better off when they leave our institutions than when they started? We just need to demonstrate that to the public over and over again.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
So this is a good.
Go ahead, Domi. Next question.
Oh, thanks, Courtney. Yeah, our next question then kind of dovetails into what Joe was just talking about. So it's from Sarah. And Sarah wants to know, what are the impediments to moving these numbers better and faster?
Joe, what do you think from a Colorado standpoint?
Well, we've seen enrollment decline here. And frankly, for community college access institutions, we know that our enrollments really run countercyclical to the economy. Right now, there are opportunity costs to going to college. People are employed at higher wages than ever before, higher rates than ever before. So they're putting off post-secondary education. Partly our fault because we put people in a position where they feel they have to choose between work or higher education. And if we can be more flexible so that we can demonstrate that people can go while they're still working, that they can go in the evening, there are alternative delivery methods, it's affordable, and their lives will be better off if they continue to work towards a credential. I think as long as we can continue to do that, we'll start to bring more adults back in, and that's really the key here.
Yeah, Joe is exactly right. And to pick up on that, I think we continue to think about whether it's the Harvard and the Ivy Leagues that are up here in the New York Times, just the general cultural perception that if you're going to go to college, that means you're going to stop working. You're going to go to a leafy campus for 4 years. At the end of 4 years, you're going to march across the stage. You're going to get a diploma that's going to serve you for your lifetime. Well, that's nice, but it's only nice for about 13% of the enrolled students. So we do actually perfectly, Joe. We need to get into the minds of people that says, no, college is where you are for you. And I think that the more we can talk about opportunities for distance learning, the more we can talk about part-time work, the more increasingly we can talk about short-term Pell as a way of supporting students in pre-degree programs and certificates. That's what we need to break, is that mindset that it means 4 years of lost earnings.
Right. We know it's not the reality for most students.
Not the reality.
Pointed out, Ted. And what we know is that students, families want to improve their economic and social mobility. And still, the data is very clear. Students will have greater opportunities to become economically and socially mobile if they get a post-secondary credential, whether it's a short-term certificate or a bachelor's degree or beyond.
Joe, if I can pick up on, I really will let you guys ask some questions, but Joe,
No,
this will be the Joe and Ted show for one more thing. Joe, you've been really helpful to us at Colorado as we've been rethinking the Carnegie classification that organizes colleges and universities according to a number of criteria. The big one that we're introducing this round is social and economic mobility. And so we will be able to see, and students and parents will be able to see the colleges that really are making a difference in their communities and outside their communities. I think the movement toward thinking about ROI, thinking about social and economic mobility, looking at the institutions that are really moving the needle is going to help to change the dialogue. And Lumina has been incredibly helpful to us at ACE in doing this work.
Show me.
great. We have another question from Roy. Roy wants to know, some data shows bachelor's degrees rising faster than associate's degrees. Why? Why do you all think that's happening?
Ted, what do you think?
I think that I think that associate's degrees are complicated in multiple ways, but two of them. One is that associate degrees are not necessarily required for the two things that people often go to community college for. One, get a job. Two, go to a four-year institution. So a lot of people will go to a two-year college or an open access college just long enough to be able to achieve that goal. And so artificially, the number of associate degrees is pushed down. One of the things that we're trying hard to do is to give those colleges credit for those students who are very successful, whether that's in becoming an apprentice welder or transferring to Colorado State University. If you do that before you get your degree, Colorado Mesa College doesn't get credit for you. And we need to change that.
And that's exactly right, Ted. It's also clear that, of course, not all degrees are created equal. And that's true for associate degrees as well. We know that an associate of general studies doesn't dramatically increase your earnings. It helps you if you want to go on to a four-year school. But if you don't, if you stop there, you're not much better off than you were with a high school diploma. But if you get an associate, let's say, of applied science in a healthcare field, or as a first responder or IT, your earnings go up dramatically. So we've got to do a better job of advising students into the right programs. And I will say our data show us that there is growth in short-term credentials. It's not reflected in this report, but we've seen the strongest growth just in the last few years because we've targeted high demand jobs where there's not enough people qualified for those jobs. And most of those require short-term credentials, which we're now offering free in Colorado. So students are able to identify those programs that will lead directly to a job that they can get for free and they can get in a short period of time, which addresses what people are most concerned about higher ed, which is it takes too long, it costs too much, and it doesn't lead to a job. Our programs here make that possible. It addresses all three of those issues.
Excellent. We still have questions coming in. This one's from Greg. Greg wants to know, what is the number one action that we can collectively take for our nation to attain the 60% goal? Ted, let's start with you.
Easy. Increase graduation rates. So let's look at it this way. We're running a store. 100% of the people who come in the door want to buy something. Only 60% do. That other 40%, Lumina's pointed this out year after year after year, that 60% is low-hanging fruit. We need to do a better job of keeping people through the whole race, and we need to do a better job of reaching back to people who have some college and no degree.
Yeah, can I jump in on that? We know that over 40 million people in the United States have some college, no degree. 40 million people. Ted, I couldn't agree with you more. We have to ensure that those people don't have a broken promise. They start college with the intention of getting a degree and for whatever reason have to stop out. So we need to do better to ensure that they can complete a credential of value.
You're both exactly right.
Joe, what would you add to that?
We've seen here in Colorado that for many years, when I first started at a community college 25 years ago, the focus was on enrollment, and it was just taken as a given that many of those students wouldn't complete, and that was okay. We realize now that's just completely wrong. And for the same reason Ted talked about those customers coming into a store, why would we want to enroll them and not see them graduate? So we moved from a focus on access to a focus on success, on completion. And now we're going beyond that and saying completion with a purpose. Are we preparing you for that next level job where your life is going to be better off? And frankly, community colleges historically have not done a great job. Access institutions like the university I used to lead, which was an HSI, didn't have high enough graduation rates. We need to focus on how we support students so that they can complete, and if they don't complete, how to make it possible for them to come back to get what they wanted to get in the first place.
Exactly.
So we have another question, and this question is from Jordan, and Jordan wants to know, can you shed any light on trends related to the number of adults with quality short-term credentials? This is a good one. I mean, all of them are good, but this is a good one. Joe, would you like to start?
Absolutely. We just haven't focused on that enough in the past. We've said we have short-term programs here, but we offered them the same way we offered all of our other general education programs during the day, Monday through Thursday between 9 and 2. That doesn't work for working adults who want to gain a skill, and is what Ted was referring to earlier. We need to adjust what we do, how we do it, how we deliver it, when we deliver it, and then we need to target those adults and tell them it's possible. They're not as concerned. We always think it's about financial aid for tuition. It's about far more than tuition. They have kids, they have rent or house payments, they've got other people they're caring for. We've got to adopt a broader approach, and then we have to give them credit for prior learning. So we can say what you already know will help you get a credential. Those are the things that really matter.
Yeah, Joe's exactly right, and he's been in the field and in the trenches doing this for a long time, and I think that we're turning a corner. I think that there was a period in which the general higher ed population had disdain for short-term programs because they believed that institutions, many of them proprietary institutions, were running these just as a way to fill their bank account and weren't really concerned with outcomes. And I think Joe and his colleagues have always been focused on outcomes. I think that there have been structural impediments of the registrarial sort that Joe mentions, but I think the big change that we're seeing today is a focus on outcomes for short-term programs. Short-term programs need to be connected with the world of work in a way that gives students a real pathway. So I think the highest quality programs that we're seeing nationally are those that are attached to existing companies with existing employment needs, with existing job opportunities, which drives this conversation to a hyper-local place where local community colleges working with local employers can create these matrix of skills and opportunities that really match. And that's what high quality short-term programs should do.
Let me just add to that a little bit, just a clarification in Stronger Nation. With the short-term credentials, we do put a labor market premium on those, so we don't count all certificates and all certifications. They have to have exactly what you're both talking about, a job on the other end that has a labor market premium over high school alone. And for certifications, that's a 10% premium over high school alone. And for certificates, that's a 15% labor market premium. And those are the only ones that get counted in Stronger Nation. So we do want to ensure that people are getting quality credentials that lead to a good job.
And while we're really geeking out, again, praise to Lumina for organizing that way of thinking. And a consequential state, Texas, has now organized its community college funding on the back of exactly that kind of labor market premium. So this matters in policy, matters in practice, and most of all, it matters for learners.
Absolutely.
And here in Colorado,
great. So we actually had, oh, go ahead, Joe.
I just want to say here in Colorado, we've linked our Department of Higher Ed to our Colorado Department of Labor, and we put together a Colorado Talent Pipeline report every year to help us identify where there is labor market demand. And then we try to make, and by community, and then we try to make sure that we're offering programs that will help fill that demand in the communities where the jobs exist.
Let me add one point to that really quickly, Domi. So one of the things, because I know the question was about the trend that we've seen in those short-term credentials. So speaking exactly to what Joe just mentioned, we've seen many states that are really focusing on those high-quality credentials. And as a result, they may see blips where their short-term credentials go down because they're getting rid of those that don't provide quality to their population, which is exactly what they should be doing. And that's why we're seeing some of the trends bounce around or maybe go down a little bit because states are focused on the quality, the credentials that matter, the credentials that provide that labor market outcome.
Very true. We in higher ed rarely stop doing things, even if there's not a demand for them. We add more things. Our state has said, we want to see you eliminate unproductive programs. And so we have done that. We've eliminated a lot of certificate and even some degree programs to focus our resources on the area where there's demand.
Yeah.
So we're going to do our final question, and I'd love to give it to Joe. Joe, we've heard from Aisha. You talked about Colorado, but interested in what are states doing to increase attainment? We've heard bits and pieces of that. What are your thoughts about that? Besides Colorado, what other places have you heard?
Well, we've heard a lot of states.
Are doing
look at
great work.
Kentucky or Tennessee. There's good examples in Louisiana where, again, they're trying to give people credit for prior learning to help them ladder up into a credential. All these states are working on stackable credentials so that you can come and get something at a relatively low level in a short period of time that will help you get a better job, but then you can continue to build on those credits to get the next level credential. We see that a lot in healthcare and IT. So those are the things that I think are key. So we don't look at higher ed as simply being, something you do once and then you're done and you go into the job market. That's just not the reality of our economy anymore. We need people to be constantly coming back and getting retrained. I took a welding class recently because I just wanted to, but you never know. So if higher ed continues to face a decline, I may have to fall back on that welding credential. No, seriously, I think that we know that there are a lot of different things people can do, but we need to make it possible for them to do it without going full-time, without going 9 to 2, Monday through Thursday, without sitting in a classroom next to people who may be half their age.
Yeah.
Dami, I can't resist. There's a back office part of this too.
Please do.
There's a back office part of this that I want us all to remember. So keeping track of students, a part of the old days, right? That you and I are old enough to remember. When you brought a student in, it was like, hey, you've got the brass ring. Good luck. See you at graduation. But we now know that students, particularly first-generation students who are unfamiliar with college for a variety of reasons, students who may have a different educational background or social background, we need to create supports for them that are connected to their experience. And so the tools that we now have to be able to track students, for lack of a softer word, to track students through their experience and provide them just-in-time supports, whether those are counseling supports, sometimes financial supports. You know, in the community college world, if you're a community college student who has to commute, if your radiator blows, you could very easily lose all your traction and you never come back to school. So keeping track of those things, being ready to provide the supports, absolutely essential. And then I can't stop this. I can't eliminate one of the big problems that we have, which I think is an impediment in many, many ways, transfer. I think that if you want to find the original sin for lack of student attainment, it is the transfer problem. So many students accumulate credits, whether it's credit for prior learning or credit for classroom learning. They accumulate credits. They go next door to the next institution. The next institution says, oh, well, that's great. Of course, you're going to have to start over again. And until we come to terms with this stackability of learning from across institutions through an effective transfer program, we're not going to have the attainment results we need.
Absolutely. You know, and I would take it a few steps
Ted,
up and say, you know, one of the other things that helps states really see this incredible progress we've seen over the last 14 years is that 49 states, since the nation set the goal, 49 states set their own goal, which really helped them drive these things and make the changes that both of you are talking about. And I think that's really been crucial, and they've been tracking that change and putting those efforts in. And I would say that it's really made, you know, the state of our nation much stronger, and it needs to be stronger even so.
I would agree with that. I would say that
We just want,
that there's no way 49 states
No, go
would have
ahead, please,
adopted
Joe.
their own attainment goal, but for Lumina setting that nationwide goal in the first place. And they've helped us. Lumina has given us $1 million to help us focus on adult learners, changing what we do and how we do it, again, to serve adult learners and to help us hit that attainment goal that we've set.
Well, it's taken everyone around the country,
This
all
was
of
a
our
great
partners,
spot.
all of you to get the nation where we are. So it's thanks to everyone out there.
Can I? Yeah, thank you, everyone. I mean, listen, y'all, this SHIO, former SHIO staffer, my heart's like, let's talk for another 2 hours. I'd love it. This was amazing. Just again, Ted Mitchell, Joe Garcia, thank you for your time. You indeed were special guests, but more above anything else, you're higher ed advocates. We weren't able to get to all of the questions, but not to worry, everyone. We have a Stronger Nation webpage. We're so thankful that you were able to join us today. And we just want you to understand that Stronger Nation, it is a tool. Please go to the website, use it to advance your work, use it to figure out where your kids are going to school, use it is what we're after. And so with that, again, Joe and Ted, our thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll hand it over to Courtney.
Thank you for joining us, both in this exploration of the new Stronger Nation data and in the firm belief that higher education offers the promise of better lives for so many people. The power of the data tool lies in the clear guidance it provides, both in our nation's successes in educational attainment and in the areas where we can do better. As many have found since we began this journey 14 years ago, this is an immensely valuable resource for those working in their states and communities to increase attainment and reduce stubborn inequities in educational outcomes. I encourage you to go onto the Stronger Nation site and play. As I always say, you can't break it. Please explore, compare your community to another, take a deeper look at which groups are being left behind, and determine what needs to be done in your community to change that trend. Like many of you, this is the work we tackle every day at Lumina Foundation. This information is the starting point in that effort, and the goal is a stronger nation filled with people with good jobs and good lives. Thank you for joining us.